Hello and welcome to Trio House Press's release reading for our poetry titles of 2024. We're very excited to have you here with us tonight and to hear the wonderful poetry of our poets. They're joining us as we speak. Our poets tonight are Christian Gullette, the winner of the 2024 Trio Award, Susan L. Leary, the winner of the Louise Bogan Award, Leona Sevick, and Dorinda Wegener, who are winners of our Editors Award. Hi, Dorinda. I don't know where everybody else is. I think they're coming.
Okay, I'm like, I hope they're coming.
The joys of Zoom.
I'm so sorry. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be in
Oh
the
no,
other
I was
room.
bringing you back from the
Okay.
breakout room, so we're all coming in here. Wonderful. Hey, Natasha. All
Hi,
right.
Princess.
Great. Well, we are just thrilled to be welcoming you all here for this wonderful reading, to have you all in the same virtual room, because we are spread across the country, quite literally, from Virginia to California. So it's just really great to be able to do this and to celebrate your books with you. A lot of great new stuff is happening. So for those of you who don't follow us on social media, please do. We have all sorts of wonderful announcements about upcoming events and different reviews and interviews and publications that are coming up. So please do that and keep on top of what's going on, because there's a lot of really wonderful things happening. Our first reader tonight will be Christian Gullette. Christian Gullette's debut poetry collection, Coachella Elegy, won the Trio House Press Trio Award. Publishers Weekly praised Coachella Elegy as tender and deliciously sly. Gullette delivers a nuanced, well-paced collection. And Coachella Elegy has been included in Lit Hub, Electric Lit, Alta Journal, and a beautiful list of must-read poetry collections for 2024. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the New Republic, the American Poetry Review, the Yale Review, Kenyon Review, New England Review, and the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series, selected by Diane Seuss. He's the recipient of a 2022 Breadloaf Scholarship. Christian works as a professional Swedish to English translator, and he'll be on the faculty of the 2024 Kenyon Review online translation workshop. He also serves as editor-in-chief of the Cortland Review. Christian lives in San Francisco with his husband, Michael. So let's give Christian a hand, and the rest of us will mute our video while Christian reads.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here celebrating with all of my fantastic press mates, Dorinda, Susan, Leona. Special thanks to Trio House, to Chris, Natasha, David, and everybody else who helps to make this happen. I'm going to be reading from my collection, Coachella Elegy, which is out today. And I'm going to start with a poem called Palm Springs. We drink Fernet by ironic sculptures under misters that make our bangs damp. It's our anniversary, though that time feels faint. We're searching for a place to escape his diagnosis, laws against gay marriage, our leaky flat roof. Every Memorial Day and Labor Day, we go to the desert. Sometimes also the 4th of July. Palm Springs rewinds things. We almost buy that mid-century chair, proud of our rule that love for it needs to be immediate. At the Parker, a guy with a calf tattoo brings drinks. You can ask for anything here. We toast to another year without cancer. After dinner, we wander the hotel hedge maze, nowhere to go this late but home. So the book Much of the book takes place in the Coachella Valley and Palm Springs and areas around that. And I'm always surprised by the artwork in the various Airbnbs that we rent. We usually get a different Airbnb every time. And this poem is called Airbnb Art. Under a Sputnik-shaped lamp, a Picasso with 3 eyes. My husband's prosthetic eye is as blue as the other. After the surgery, we had sex, his eye under a gauze tent. I injected lidocaine through a tube that coiled behind the bandage. I wiped his armpits with a washcloth. There were still traces of a purple arrow drawn by the nervous surgeon. The ocularist hand-painted his pupil. It looks like the eye I always loved. The next poem is the title poem in the book, and it's there's a sea outside, not far from Palm Springs, near Coachella, called the Salton Sea, which is a human-made sea by accident that formed 100 years ago. But now it's sort of drying up. And one day we went to see it. And on the way there, I had forgotten that it was the anniversary of my brother's death. Coachella Elegy. Somewhere there's music. We drive by Coachella to the Salton Sea, a sea as dead as Salt Lake. My phone buzzes. It's the anniversary of my brother's death. There are no reeds as there are at Cana, and this water will not become wine. Shorebirds drink it, not because they love the world, but because there's a magnet in it. Is that freedom, this wandering? There's a forgotten swing set submerged in this sea. Young people who once swayed on it still exist. Salt, I float in it, wanting to be held up. The book is separated into different sections by a series of prose poems that sort of look like this, and they're all entitled In Transit. And I'm going to read the second In Transit that is about my brother Jeremy, who passed many years ago and is the subject of many of these elegies. In Transit. Maybe the facts of what happened on a highway are not narrative facts in the way I was raised to think of time, but circular in that they always circle back to the same place, exit for some, entrance for others. In my family, a story existed and continues to exist. How my brother used to drive the freeway for hours in search of motorists to assist. We all have our theories as to why he drove his Jeep for hours in circles, never getting lost. On the Beltway, with its metaphorical human belly, driving the Beltway, I realize how it holds things up or keeps them from falling. The other feature about the 6 elegies in this book, which is a very California book, but the elegies are almost all set in Utah, where my brother went to boarding school. And this next poem is about him, and it's called Rainbow Sprinkles Elegy. Because he can, my brother eats an entire bowl of rainbow sprinkles from the toppings bar. No ice cream. The menu is a giant cow on the wall. Sitting under its udder, we try to salvage things. We could also order mozzarella sticks, which he does. Another thing about him that irritates me. When he was younger, he put his mouth under a candy dispenser full of M&Ms. They cascaded out of the store and into the mall and just kept going. Medications and special schools have yet to break his impulse for pleasure. Something urgent inside him that none of us understand is about to detonate. I still haven't even come out. He sends me a letter from his boarding school in Utah and asks me to send him AA batteries. I have no idea what they're for. He isn't even allowed any electronics. So I'm just going to read 2 more poems. And this one is set in Palm Springs, and it's called Mid-Century Modern. Behind glass walls, the host slices limes. I'd follow LA boys anywhere. One kneels poolside with a tray of Jello shots, his shoulders peeling. Desert palms echo in Ray-Bans. Another guy fidgets with the knot in my swimsuit. Without indoors or outdoors, I can invite everything in. By the searing metal ladder, memory is too hot to climb out of. My husband watches from a strip of artificial grass. In the desert, you have big afternoons, not big nights. And so the final poem I'm going to read is called Survival. It's actually set in LA. And I figured it'd be a good one to end on since Palm Springs begins with an anniversary. Survival ends with an anniversary. Survival. Under the gilded wooden beams of the throwback lounge, the waiter says the Roosevelt Hotel is haunted. A favorite of Marilyn's, hers is not the only ghost. My cocktail comes with smoke, advertised as classic, like the hotel's neon sign, a landmark. Everything on Sunset is a landmark at least once. The smoke shop that sells Dunhills in the red rectangular box used to be a place people recognized. It's astonishing any of these things last. For our 10th year, we have dinner at the Roosevelt, beside the Hockney pool, its blue squiggles, hand-painted by the artist, each one recently restored. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Christian. It's just amazing. So love hearing you read your poetry after reading it on the page. It just really makes it come alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Okay. Well, Susan L. Leary, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am ready.
All right. So I will introduce Susan. Susan L. Leary is a poet, writer, and educator living in Indianapolis, Indiana. She is the author of 4 poetry collections, Dressing the Bear, Trio House Press, selected by Kimberly Blazer to win the Louise Bogan Award, A Buffet Table Fit for Queens by Small Harbor Publishing in 2023, winner of the Washburn Prize, Contraband Paradise, Main Street Rag 2021, and This Girl, Your Disciple from Finishing Line Press in 2019, finalist for the Heartland Review Press Chapbook Prize and semifinalist for the Elise Wolf Prize. Her poetry and nonfiction have appeared or are forthcoming in such places as the Indiana Review, Diode Poetry Journal, Crab Creek Review, the Arkansas International, South Dakota Review, Tar River Poetry, Tahoma Literary Review, and Verse Daily. She holds a BA, MA, and MFA from the University of Miami, where she taught writing studies for 15 years and now teaches at Indiana University. Yay, Susan!
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. So Dressing the Bear is a book-length elegy to my brother who died by overdose in September of 2020. And in a different, perhaps better, more perfect world, this book would never have been written because the person that it's for would still be here. But in place of that, I have been met with the most perfect conditions to share this book with all of you. And that is because Trio House Press is truly wonderful. Chris, Natasha, Patrick, everyone behind the scenes, thank you for showing these poems so much care and so much support. And to my fellow readers, Christian, Dorinda, Leona, to be pressmates with you is just wow. And thank you also for being just so kind to me this past year. Really, this entire experience has been a dream. All right, so the first poem that I'm going to share is one I find that I really enjoy reading. And for context, when I first started drafting these poems, I was taking a workshop with Natalie Handel. And during the first session, she kind of asked all of us, hey, what is that one question that is really weighing on your mind? What is that one question that you just can't kind of shake? And I said, does my brother know he's dead? And so the next few weeks, I brought in poems on that subject. And eventually she said to me, very encouragingly, Susan, do you know your brother is dead? And, that really hit me. And I thought, hey, I have to think about that. So this poem is what emerged from those reflections. Twisted Threads. When we look to God, we mean to look head on at what's in our peripheral vision. But God is tied to the periphery by a taut string. As we glance to the right or left, God moves proportionally out of view. Why, we ask? The better question, how did the string come to be there? When I dream of my brother, we sit side by side in a 1969 Grabber blue Shelby. We talk normal talk, but my brother refuses to face me. As I turn towards him, he turns towards the window. As I turn back to the dash, so does he. We move in sync like this for hours. It is the dreamer who dreams. But how do those who visit the dreamer come to be there? How does God or my brother begin to relax the string? At some point, I ask my brother to take me to the hospital or the morgue. It doesn't matter which. I can't, he says. You're driving. So the next poem that I want to read is the title poem, and it's one of my favorites. And an important part of this book for me was preserving my brother's language. And he was super, super smart. And he was always offering up these sort of witty one-liners that would just stop you in your tracks. And so this poem ends with his voice, with his wisdom. And it's Dressing the Bear because for the most part, this poem is set in the mall at the Build-A-Bear factory, though I do jump through time a little bit. So Dressing the Bear for Brittany. This time we give the body shoes. The body of a bear my brother is building at a factory in the mall to give to the girl he's loved since the 6th grade. I'm there to pay for the bear and to speak of none of it, which is fine because I'm good at hiding the ways my brother has wanted. This time is different. At each station, my brother stuffs only the good parts of himself inside the slack fur. He gives the bear perfumed bones and shiny gold laces and breathes so as not to snap them. He considers what the girl wants, and I consider his face as he forgets he has one. As if in loving the girl and loving her limb by clothed limb, for once, my brother can love himself. Probably that bear is in a Florida landfill, barefoot and decapitated, its floral button-down shirt torn and full of crawfish stains. But the girl arrives at my brother's service in a blue and pink striped dress, a burst skeleton of human sky. And I remember the air as we exited the mall into the sunset that day, the reddest bomb of a fist before us. Then my brother, with insight delicate enough not to wreck the evening. It's harder to catch the sunrise, he says. You have to really want it. So I'd also like to share a poem that has had a really beautiful life online. And as it's kind of been shared, it's connected me with a lot of other people who have shared a similar loss. And I'm really grateful for those connections. I also think that this poem speaks for itself, or at least I hope it does. Clean. I often worried when I got the call I'd be unprepared. But the morning my brother dies, all the good clothes in the house are clean. So I tell myself to get on with it. And later, standing over my brother, I think whoever prepared his body must love what they do, because he looks so clean. Cleaner even than when he dozed on the couch mid-afternoons to Hank Williams or Johnny Cash, the fatigue of living wiped from his cheeks. And today, as then, the same stillness stretched across his eyes, the same tiny shovels for thumbs. And when I find the strength to rest a hand atop his, I shake him a little to tell him I wore his favorite dress, summery and sand-colored with splotches of blue. And while it seems so symbolic, it's all rather simple. I wear a blue patterned dress because my brother loved the ocean, and because my brother was lonely and broken, he couldn't kick drugs. But I love my brother. And the morning he dies, all the good clothes in the house are clean. So I tell him, clean. Behind every addict is a family, a group of friends, people, loved ones who are agonizing over that person's survival. And that agony is agonizing. And it is a very painful, difficult kind of love. And what to do with that love. So the final poem I'll be reading, Complicity. The palm reader has commenced her weeping, the lines etched into my brother's skin, fleeing each other at sharp angles. Her attempts to soften them of their panic with her thumb, a fiasco. The boy's future avoiding examination like a pair of striped legs curling back beneath the house that crushed them. Have we not all been crushed by what shelters us? By a sun hauled from the sky and collapsed into rubies, my brother carrying the wreck of it in his hands. With soap and water, I scrub those hands clean. I do the killing. I do what it takes to keep a boy from realizing something inside him has already died. All day, my brother sleeping atop a bed of pine needles and cinder block, his body refusing itself mercy by refusing to lie flat against the earth. Steady now, says the palm reader. Steady now, says the palm. And maybe my brother has tried. Maybe I have too, nodding with his trembling hand in mine each time he says, I don't care about who I could be. I only want more of who I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I had never heard you read that poem aloud, and I read it so many times, and it was just, yeah, gave me chills. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Leona, are we ready to go? Okay. And so now I will introduce Leona Sevick, the author of The Bamboo Wife. I did not know what a bamboo wife was until I met you, Leona, and actually Googled that term. So are you going to explain that, or is it okay if I do? What do you want to do?
Go ahead. I can read the title poem, but I think it might need more explanation than my poem. So
Okay. Well, it's very cool. A bamboo wife is like, I wish I had one because it seems like such a great idea. It's essentially a body pillow, right? Woven out of bamboo. So there's air holes that keeps you cool at night so you can wrap your arms around it and be cool at night. So I thought that was so awesome and such a great metaphor for so much of what the book is about. And it just grabbed me from that point forward. And I just absolutely adore your book. And here's Leona's bio. Leona Sevick's work appears in Orion, Birmingham Poetry Review, Blackbird, The Southern Review, The Sun, and is forthcoming in Poetry Northwest. Leona serves on the advisory board of the Furious Flower Black Poetry Center and is provost and professor of English at Bridgewater College in Virginia, where she teaches Asian American literature. She is the 2017 Press 53 Poetry Award winner for her first full-length book of poems, Lion Brothers. The Bamboo Wife is her second book of poetry. Welcome, Leona.
thank you. Thanks so much, Chris. Thank you, Natasha. And also all of my pressmates, what wonderful poems you're reading tonight. And I had the great pleasure of reading your books over the last few months. And of course, they are beautifully touching poems about loss and about joy. And I'm so proud to be your pressmate. So thank you very much. I am going to read the title poem, but I thought first I would read a poem that was really meant to be what this book was about. But as books sometimes do, my book took a completely different direction. I was writing a book about homes, and so there are a number of poems in this book about homes, and this is one of them. It's called Filial. Never mind that I'm here for him, that I've returned to this house I swore I would never sleep in again. He is crumbling. The stiff bricks of his body, once pointed and strong, need tending, as does this house, the broken banister and chipped paint signaling decline. Never mind that now I make the rules, that I decide what we're eating, when we're leaving, what pills we take with what, who we trust, who we don't trust. My father hangs on my every word, wags his head at me like Gogol's plaster cat, obediently heads off to bed hours before I climb into mine, exhausted and numb. I sleep dreamless in my father's house, my brain emptied of all its troubles, the ancient slights and disappointments of the once beloved, then maligned. I sleep like I never sleep in my bright and book-lined home, brimming with the busy lives of my children. In my father's house, buried in the detritus of an old life, I am mortared, safe and unsafe, sound and collapsing. You've heard Chris talk about the bamboo wife, and it is an object that I encountered on a trip to Korea almost 10 years ago. And so my mother was South Korean, and this poem I wrote not long after I visited the Jeju Folklore Museum. The Bamboo Wife. If one bright day you find yourself moving through the rooms of the Jeju Folklore Museum, you might pause at the domestic exhibits, wonder at the strange closed basket as wide as a drum and as long as a yardstick. They call it Bamboo Wife, and carefully printed signs tell you that in warmer months, men would wrap their arms and legs around her cage body to sleep, her ribs free from flesh, the air moving through her to cool the sleeper. Perhaps you think this a strange marriage, the wife stiff and silent, her spouse breathing into her his stale, sour air, arms locked in a tight embrace around nothing. Where has she gone, living wife? Out to the paddy field in search of a soft breeze, the cold water cupping her feet as she reaches for the sky. In a little while, I'm returning to a place that I love, and if we have writers out there, maybe one or two of my pressmates have been to Hambidge. It's a wonderful environment where you'll find lots of trees and snaky things. And I wrote this poem when I was at Hambidge a couple of years back. It has an epigraph, so the poem is retold, and the epigraph reads, Orpheus, Eurydice cried, what madness has destroyed my wretched self and you? Step carefully, friends. Follow close at my heels. Trust me to hold back thorny stems that scratch shins, lift low eye-gouging branches, sidestep loose stones and muddied holes threatening dryad ankles. Do be careful. Use your hands if they help. Move slowly over fallen trees, their twisted roots. Let me show you what I've found in these dark woods. Do you see these fire daylilies, their velvet tangerine heads held up by long, strong necks? Note the tiny clenched fists of the mountain laurel, the purple, swollen fingers of wild orchids, water hopscotching rocks wherever the stream bends. Hundreds of dollhouse ferns, electric green, overgrow these paths, take back what men once claimed. Up ahead, that man, my lover, will not wait, will not stop to admire what I see. He won't, I've learned, turn back for me. He will study trail maps, look for painted markers tacked to live oaks, repeat his stories, the same lyre notes I've heard again and again. Watch him greet every wild dog, insist that it love him, lick him with all three tongues. Slick with self-interest, my lover stomps on large feet, progress of the unencumbered. Knowing my fears, primordial, unyielding, he warned snakes coil in shadowed, cool places. To some this seemed a kindness. I once thought so too. Why don't we linger here while he moves on? Soak in the honest sun that shines on you, on me. The god Hymen predicted failure. Friends, I cannot say I wasn't warned. I like to write a lot of poems about my children. They don't always like it, but I enjoy it. And I thought I'd read a couple of those poems. They're very short. Kraken. Keeping to herself, she derives no joy from the social sea. Focused instead on the work at hand, she moves giant cupped arms that pull and push the water, fanning eggs to feed them oxygen. Her beak, tucked into bubbled flesh, recalls the crack of clamshells, the crunch of shark cartilage. Now hunger hollows her, bulbs her eyes, pulls at ringed flesh so thin it appears translucent. She withers for months until the octopi hatch and she can die. What price this strength, this terrifying resolve? It takes a hard-ass woman to raise her young. Just ask any teenage girl. And then for my final poem, This is a poem that has an explanatory note at the back of the book. Jeff Cooper, who was born in 1920, popularized the use of the handgun. And then he offered some advice about how to safeguard the handgun. This poem's called Cooper's Rules. Number 1, all guns are loaded. Except for this, as soon as you realize that some guns are not, you let your guard down. And before you know it, a loaded gun slips into the mix and you find yourself in real trouble. Say the gun is sexy and shows some real talent. Maybe its lines are smooth and the coldness of the metal excites you. The danger stirs in you a feeling you haven't had in quite some time. You pick up that gun and feel its strange weight in your hand, and now you can't put it down. Number 2, never let the muzzle cover anything you don't plan to destroy. See, the thing with guns is that they're made to do some kind of damage, inflict some kind of hot pain, bore through soft tissue or shatter bone. They're not made to comfort anyone, to bring soup if you're sick, or make you feel better when you've had a bad day. They won't remember how you like your steak or why you don't like that Eagles song that everyone else seems to love. Guns are narcissists from sight to grip, and they will never change. Don't turn the muzzle toward you. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are on the target. For the love that all that is good and pure, do not put your finger on the trigger of that gun you can't make yourself put down. Number 4, identify your target and what is left behind it. Once you think you know what it is you want, think again. Take a few steady breaths. Look and see what's collateral before you lift that gun and ease that trigger back. Prepare for the kick and the boom. Don't cry. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Leona. That was just wonderful. I loved hearing the bamboo wife out loud. It was great. Thank you. Okay, and our final reader tonight is Dorinda Wegener. Dorinda was selected as a Poets and Writers 2024 Get the Word Out Poetry Cohort participant. Her debut collection, Four Fields, is forthcoming from Trio House Press in July 2024. Wegener has recent work, poems or essays, forthcoming in Lit Hub, as well as poems published in many journals, including the Antioch Review, Thrush, Mid-American Review, Indiana Review, Hotel America, Hayden's Ferry Review, and Hunger Mountain. She is a peri-anesthesia certified registered nurse in Richmond, Virginia, who holds an MFA in poetry from New England College, where she was a Joel Oppenheimer Award recipient. And you can find her at www.dorindawegener.com. Welcome, Dorinda.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you for having me here. And I guess I'll start. Yeah, there we go. Before I dive in, I just wanted to say thank you to a couple of people. My team, which would be Chris, Natasha, Hadley, Allie, and Joel. So thank you guys for making this gorgeous book and inviting me into Trio House Press. My pressmates, Susan, Christian, Leona, you guys are amazing. I am beyond humbled and honored to share the podium with you here. And also to everyone out there, family, friends, the audience, thank you guys so much for being here. It means the world to me, so thank you. I'm gonna have 4 poems for you, and I'm just gonna start, dive right in. All right. I write you with the intention of amendment. Because you were a court-berry basket filled with silver bells, and I was the dried carrion carried by crows. Because you were a fig tree with new roots, and I a garden of snakes, because you were a purse of gold coins, the last land of lands. I have palmed this prayer in my pocket till it turned to stone, and you housed this stone in your heart until it turned to hard wood. I have orphaned myself from the word mother. The oxeye daisies pass the stiff asters as the bees jump rabbit foot, clover, cone to cone. Stitching the season late is how I finished the family sampler to cover the next generation's hope chest. I need to scavenge the mother-daughter sentiment from years of burnt eggs and runny oat, for I am done arguing over tongues and the scorn of steel wool. Matriarch of the vine which scurries with myths unseen, we have nursed through hunger's red music. I create a new name from your metronym and now understand. Mama, I write you with the intention of amendment, with thrift to thrive penances, green as forgiveness, trepid as love. And this is the title poem. It is called Four Fields. It's in 4 sections. It is a biopic, I guess, maybe, if that's even a word, of my family. And I will pause in between the 4 sections. 4 fields. Every winter home to the farm taken by marsh, thistle, and wineberry. At the silo door, the family eidolon absolves me, my stock paper and indelible ink. A lifeline born from the tureen of their eyes. Cold soup, skinned. My sister is always a rabbit, my other a grizzly. I am a black swan nested. Survival is the dream of a cicada mid-air, a mass for the lost moon. Here is the first of 40 days. The crop rent by runnels and sidereal time. Mother, in early spring for her spade, riven by rock, is found clay-clad and weeping. What is blood among blood? What are locusts from the hands of God? And in his Sunday suit, the oldest son remains plot-side, my brother. He is music not of the hand. He is our father's headstone and glass decanter, raised to the ergot sheaves, rose to the lip of the wind. Section 4 of the book is dedicated to my father, who passed from dementia and Alzheimer's. And this is for him. It's called The Speed of Light Does Not Follow Any Acceptable Form of Logic. My father is outside the locked ward and my sister, both my sisters and my brother. Our father keeps his coat on at all times. My father is in a world where I am his mother, my husband is the man from the laundromat, and my brother-in-law is the man from the bank. The light we can see in tonight's sky is from stars already left. The light we can see and the coat. The nurses at the locked ward will jump quickly and run the length of their stations to sound the alarm. When my father left this world, he stayed in this world. He will not be in this world again. Everyone wants him to be locked in the ward with his coat except for him. Our father is unhappy here. Father wants to be folded into a neat, tight triangle of stars. The light we can see. It is tired. It has traveled a very long way. It wants to come in and remove its coat. And then the last poem I have for you guys tonight And again, thank you so much for letting me read for y'all. It's been my pleasure, so thank you guys. The last poem is also in 4 parts. I will pause in between the parts, and it is called The Threshing Floor, and it is the last poem in the book, The Threshing Floor. Goats were pouring forth their pure milk. Anemones were piercing the road's ribs. Lice were biting the seers gathered in gawk. Almonds were blanching in bowls of cure. Teeth were breaking gum or falling out. Breath was fouling close to necks to ears. Tongues were separating themselves. Houses were massing their shadows' length. Letters were uniting into Lenten plots. Who do you believe me to be is not the same as who do you say that I am. A gravel path raked by death dragging is the same as a bloom on the staff of life. Wheatgrass covers the field where once switchblade and broom sage grew, big and little blue stem, wild rye. The word preserve in late Latin means to keep in advance of coming rose, soft red winter, your brother, an ancient grain, our ancestors, roots not native to this soil. And the devil hath desired to sift us as wheat, tillers and main stem cut down, sickle then scythe and reaper binder, the wheat flail working loose the berries, the wind a whistle through the straw as the sparrow shrieks. This land, before fallow field or cultivated crop, before stolen and bloodshed, before we forced our own history upon it, before we faithfully answered, who do you believe me to be? And before our weaknesses were revealed in the winnowing and we falsely witnessed, who do you say that I am? Let us relearn Latin, relearn, as in conserve, to keep together. May the land take us to breast. May the land carry us under her arm as if we were omers of wheat to sieve and knead into a rough hewn bowl. May the land leave us out to prove. May we rise together by grace. Thanks, guys. That's my reading.
Thank you so much, Dorinda.
Thanks.
That was fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
grew up on a farm and I love hearing about that stuff again, like just the imagery, and it's just amazing. So Christian and Susan Leona, you want to come back on screen and we'll open it up to the Q&A. Natasha's been curating some questions for us. Natasha, would you like to begin? You're muted, I think.
There we go. All right. So throughout all of our titles, there are poems of remembrance and memory. When do you think a poem becomes an elegy? Maybe Christian, you could start us off.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think actually my title poem, Coachella Elegy, did not begin as an elegy. During the pandemic, I sat down to write my first of many of these poems because I wanted to sort of escape to my happy place. So I sat down to write an homage to Coachella Elegy in this beautiful day with my husband. And as I was writing it, out of nowhere, a memory popped into my head that I had actually tried to forget, about how horrified I was that I had forgotten it was my brother's, the anniversary of his death, until a push notification came into my phone that I had set years before to make sure I never forgot. And so the poem accidentally became an elegy. But then there are other elegies that I set out to write, with the intention of being very emotionally sad, like Rainbow Sprinkles. And actually, as I was writing it, I was laughing, remembering how fun and beautiful my brother Jeremy was, despite all his problems and challenges, and how sad it is he died so prematurely and was so misunderstood. He was also so funny and so fun. And I remember just thinking how happy I was to see everyone in the mall, like appalled, and yet I thought he was the coolest kid ever.
All right. And maybe Susan, when do you think a poem becomes an elegy?
It's interesting actually that you started the question about remembrance, because clearly in this book, I want to honor my brother, remember him, tell everybody about him. But interestingly, because I started writing these poems like immediately in the wake of his passing, nothing ever even felt like a memory to me. It felt like this raw, open wound. So I think everything that I was writing, drafting, every time I would turn to the page, it just felt like a compulsion. And it's almost and so it's almost like that compulsion to reach for him, communicate with him, somehow make contact with him. That almost became like, I guess, the version of the elegy for me. I can't say that was ever the intent, but I definitely want to preserve his language, as I kind of mentioned when I read Dressing the Bear, and kind of similar to what Christian just mentioned about his brother being really funny. I mean, I think my brother is just the best. I mean, no one is smarter than him. Like, he would just say these things that would make me marvel and make me go, wow. And it's hard to get me to go, wow. And so I want his voice to somehow, I don't know if it's be immortalized, but just, I never want it to be erased. I never want it to go away, because so much, everything he said was what he thought, which is what he felt. And so if all of that can kind of be in this collection somehow, then yes, we did it.
All right. And Leona, when do you feel like a poem becomes an elegy?
Most of my poems start out very angry. I've realized this about myself as a writer. And so, as others have said, how a poem begins is not always how it ends. And for me, I can start a poem with a very different emotional setting, and then it becomes something else entirely. And so, like Christian, Susan, I never set out to write elegies. And sometimes in the course of working through some other emotion, it does become one. And so that's something that, it's an interesting question, because it's something that I've noted about the way I write. And I used to be uncomfortable with that sort of surprising move, but I've become more comfortable with it. So I expect it now.
All right. And Dorinda, when do you feel when a poem becomes an elegy?
I think for me, when I sit down to write, it's always I'm an old school goth. I seem to court the four horsemen, so everything is bleak and sad. I think my poems, when they hit that music, when they hit the keening, if I can make an audience member, if I can make a connection with someone and they feel, then it's an elegy, even if it's a love poem. Yeah. And so in the sound, and in the emotional connection, in the movement.
Beautiful. All right, I think we have time for one more question. Okay, so being an editor, all of you always become my mentors for me when I'm writing my own poetry. But I wanted to ask each of you, what poets do you consider your mentors on the page? Who are poets that you admire and want to emulate? Susan, do you want to start us off?
I guess I can answer that. I kind of was telling you all about this earlier, but I don't know if it's poets maybe that are my mentors, but poems. And I read the same or listen to the same 3 poems every night before bed. I mean, it's just a ritual. And those 3 poems, The Portrait, Stanley Kunitz, Mary Oliver, The Fourth Sign of the Zodiac, and Jericho Brown, To Be Seen. And what I like about those poems are they help me to my feelings. They don't even help me like find language for or articulate it. They simply help me to my feelings. And I feel most human, most alive, most capable of love, most able to be loved when my heart is exploding. Whether that's with sorrow or joy or creativity, boredom, whatever it might be. It's just feeling, in and of itself. And those 3 poems really do that for me. So I think that it's emotion. It's what brings me to my emotions is it is what mentors me.
All right. And Dorinda, what poets do you consider your mentor on page?
We
or
don't have
what
enough
poets?
time. We don't have enough time. There's no way I'm going to forget tons of people. The mentors that have been most influential to me would be Gary Rafferty. He was a Vietnam vet. Met him ages ago, at least 3 decades ago, and just the fellowship and the support. For the book, I would say Kimiko Han was a very large mentor. Learning from her, working with her, I learned that it is okay to be grotesque. It is okay to explore, the beauty that's found in wounds, which is good because the book has some of those. Tara Bray taught me to pay attention to my nature and don't shy away from it, to use all the nature images. Yeah, I would say John F. Dean, just hammering into me happiness and grace and not be all doom and gloom. So I would say that those were the major drives, but I can tell you right now I'm forgetting at least 50. So yeah.
All right.
Those are
And
the ones who gave me the freedom to do the book.
there we go. And Leona, do you have any mentors on page or poets that you admire?
Yeah. And I've loved Sharon Olds' poetry for a very long time. And Adrienne Rich's poetry. So I studied American Lit, taught and still teach American Lit. Arthur Z was my teacher for a time. He's an amazing poet. And then I sometimes reach back for some Jack Gilbert as well. I think he writes a relationship sonnet like nobody's business. So those are just a couple of the folks who really speak to me.
All right. And Christian, do you have any mentors on page or poets that you admire? Oh, Christian, you're muted.
Yeah, I would say poet Henri Cole was one of the first poets to really encourage me to actually start my journey as a poet years ago, still to this day. Diane Seuss was very influential in the writing of this book and one of the first poets to encourage me to actually, really lean into the Coachella, this California portion. And poet Richie Hoffman, one of my dearest friends, saw every poem in this book. Randall Mann would be another mentor, friend. Um, so many, but those just not enough time.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. So I think that concludes our Q&A segment. So I'll pass it back to Chris.
Thank you all so much for those answers to those questions. I have a bunch of poets to read and reread, and I'm very excited to do that. I'd just like to conclude again by thanking all of you for your beautiful words and for inspiring Natasha and me, and now a lot of other people with your amazing books. And again, just encourage all of you watching to check out the upcoming events because they're all over the country. All these poets are doing events in the next few months, and we'll continue to be posting information about that and reviews, interviews, that kind of stuff, just to keep up on what's going on with our poets. Also, poets, if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a little bit after we end the event, I just wanted to say a few words to you. But thank you, audience, so much for coming tonight. And if you're watching this afterwards, thank you for tuning in afterwards and checking out this amazing reading. We really appreciate all of you readers of poetry because without you, we would not be able to do what we do either. And thank you for your support of Trio House Press. And let's all